We have a remarkably fascinating topic that's a little dangerous to talk about. You know that Madonna did not invent Kabbalah. Are you aware of that? And Kabbalah really is something that is supposed to be taught only to people over the age of 40. I see no one here who fulfills that qualification. However, I teach at Yeshiva University. There are some aspects of Kabbalah, I would call Kabbalah light, that I can't share with you, but they are so incredible, so fascinating, that to my mind it's permissible to teach these ideas.
The way that Kabbalah is written is it's pretty much encoded in a very cryptic language in order to keep it away from the masses. This is one of the ancient protocols of the Kabbalah was to relegate it to a very exclusive group of students. Very exclusive group of students that had gone through years of study. And as you mentioned, this is where I'll mention the age-old restriction of being 40 years old. And it wasn't just the age 40. It was being 40 years of age, as well as being well-versed and learned in all areas of Judaism. In biblical texts, in Talmudic texts, in Midrashic texts, in Jewish legal texts, it's a person that was well-versed, an expert, if you will, in all of these texts, and was 40, was deemed to be appropriate to welcome into the circle of the mystics, of the Kabbalists.
The dangerous Kabbalah is that they want people not studying until they're ready for it because of various reasons. That dangerous Kabbalistic stuff is no longer accessible today, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. It's not, no one would be able to understand that stuff. I myself, I've been kind of emphasizing in the mystical traditions of Judaism for over 20 years now. Whenever I find my way to a piece of Torah that's the dangerous stuff, I never can make heads or tails. I don't understand what in the world's going on over there. We're just not on that level anymore. We're not on the level of scholarship anymore to be dangerous, for Kabbalah to be dangerous to ourselves or to anyone else by you having studied it. Is that clear? So we don't have to worry so much about that ban.
When we talk about the development of Kabbalah and who are some notable Kabbalists, so we're talking about Adam, we're talking about Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, the other patriarchs, the Jewish patriarchs, are also considered to have been Kabbalists. Moses was a Kabbalist. It says Moses received the Torah from God at Sinai, and it uses the word kabel, received, like Kabbalah. So the tradition goes that not only did he receive the simple elements of Jewish wisdom, but he also received the esoteric wisdom as well, the hidden wisdom about God and about the soul and about the core of everything.
Though Kabbalah flowered in the 13th century in Spain, with the publication of a comprehensive mystical commentary on the Hebrew Bible, a text known as the Zohar, Kabbalah's teachings and understandings of biblical interpretation were never stagnant, but continuously evolving over the generations.
What happened between the ancient times of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, in the 1500s? So Kabbalah, and I kind of alluded to this before, Kabbalah was always taught, but always taught in a very secretive group. You had to be on the inside to get the wisdom. You had to know somebody that knew somebody to get invited. Hey, meet me in the forest by the tree, and we have a small study group over there. So you had to be the right type of person. You had to have the right amount of wisdom, and you had to be trusted with this wisdom as well. It's not written for everyone to understand. It's written in a language. It's almost like a map that you need a key to decode. It's like any cryptology. It's written in a language that you need, but instead of, the language is decipherable in and of itself. It's written in Hebrew and Aramaic, and you can read it and translate the words, but the meaning of it, you need that key to really understand it. That as this was taught secretively, in smaller groups, in exclusive settings, throughout the ages, throughout the centuries, it's important to remember that those teachers and those students, they did understand what it was talking about. Obviously, they understood it, and they explained it, and they taught it, and it was well understood. The idea was, though, that this is not meant for everybody. And so we're going to leave it in esoteric language. Number one, people shouldn't understand it. Number two, they shouldn't try to understand it. And number three, it can remain kind of the exclusive hold of those that need access to it.
God is a God of history. Next step. What is history? For some people, history is coincidence, a series of events that just happen to happen, but they have no meaning. God, being a God of history, cares about the world, and therefore history is not happenstance, but history follows a divine order. And the Lord will be one. God will be king of the whole world. In that day his name will be one and he will be one. In other words, slowly but surely, history moves along a path that is preordained and destined by God. Got that so far? Good. If that is true, then history has markers planned by God. If what I said wasn't true, nobody could predict the future, because the future will be whatever coincidences occur that make events happen. No. History has a plan. Secrets of Kabbalah and predicting the future. The Torah prophesied, predicted all of Jewish history. Newly ordained, just a couple of years in the rabbinate, I went to Israel, and I was in the city of Tzfat. Tzfat. Tzfat is the city of holy men. Tzfat is the city of Kabbalah. It goes way, way back. There are incredible people there. And there are Mekubalim there. How this happened, I do not know. But somebody got me to meet with a person who I am certain is one of the 36 righteous people who, according to tradition, saved the world. In their merit, the world continues to exist. I met this Mekubal. He's not world famous because a real Mekubal doesn't want to be famous. If you get to be famous and you make a lot of money and they make movies about you, it'd be a wonderful thing. No, not that kind of person. But the people who knew him and know him say he is one of the most unique people in the world today. And for whatever reason, he took a liking to me. And one day he said to me, I'm going to teach you something. At that time he said to me also, I forbid you from revealing it to people. They're not ready yet. Subsequently, years later, he told me the time is ripe. And that's why I can tell it to you now. But he said, I want to explain to you that the Torah has everything in it. And therefore it must have prophecies in it as well. And therefore it must tell us what is going to happen as well. At least, that is to say, most important events. And therefore I will teach you, he said to me, the secret of sentences. I'm going to tell it to you with a promise that I exact at the outset, that part of this concept and this insight you are not allowed to do on your own in the future. Do you understand? I'm going to tell you a secret. I'll take it as far as it can go, as far as I'm allowed to share with you, but don't carry it beyond that. I'll explain the warning when I tell you the secret. He said to me, major events in history are alluded to by the corresponding number verse in the Torah. There will be, if you look at the sentence carefully, a clue to what will happen in that year. Let me explain it more carefully. We are on the Hebrew calendar in the year what? 5774. I don't go off on the tangent about, but the world is probably millions of years old. Old question. We count not from the creation of the world, we count from Adam and Eve, and the first days of creation were not 24-hour days, because the sun wasn't created until day 4. They were periods of time, and they could have lasted millions of years, and therefore I'm not troubled, as Maimonides was not troubled, with the question. We count from Adam and Eve, and our year now, as you said, is 5774. Now, you can count sentences in the Torah, and if you know, for example, that a major event occurred on the Hebrew calendar, let's say in the year 1000, I'm just making up an example, what do? You start counting, and you look at sentence number 1000 in the Torah, and you see what it says, and if it's an important event, lo and behold, there will be a clue to that event in the verse. And I said, give me an example. And he said, I'll give you an extremely important contemporary example. Israel is a miracle. The return of the Jews to their land. No people has ever been removed from their land for centuries and came back. But it fulfilled a prediction. And so in 1948, we came back to the land. Now, the year of the establishment of the State of Israel on the secular calendar was what? 1948. You should know that. 1948. And if you transfer that to the Hebrew calendar, in other words, what year was it on the Hebrew calendar in 1948? I will tell you. I don't expect you to know. 5708. Right? 5708. Are you all with me now? Because the next step is the crucial step. So he said, I want to tell you what sentence number 5708 is. Subsequently, I did it. I first did it the old-fashioned way, and then I did it with a computer. There are now programs that do. You can just click on sentence and year, what number sentence something is in the Torah. What I was looking for was for sentence number 5708. And you may want to note this down, because afterwards, not only probably, but certainly, you will check it out. It is in Dvarim, that's Deuteronomy. Obviously, because it's in the 5000s, it's way towards the end of the book. Dvarim Lamed, chapter 30, Pasuk Gimel, verse 3. Again, Deuteronomy 33. And read the verse, and it says the following. By the way, it's the only verse in the entire Torah that reads like this, that has this idea. You ready? Just in case you didn't understand, I will translate. And the Lord your God will return you from the lands of your dispersion, and he will bring you back there to Israel. That is verse 5708 in the Torah, corresponding to the year 5708, corresponding to 1948. Wow. It is fascinating that the Rambam Maimonides, who was not a Kabbalist, and perhaps wouldn't even have liked this lecture because he was a total rationalist, nonetheless, when he writes in his halachic work that we believe in ultimate redemption and return to the land of Israel, he says, Shenemar, as it says in the Torah, and quotes, guess which pasuk, which verse? 5708. Our generation, it's not your generation, and I'm not a millennial in people 20th century. There were two major events as far as the Jewish people are concerned. One is the return, creation of the State of Israel, and the other is the Holocaust, right? And I said to Makubal, I grant you that the return of the Jewish people of Israel is there. Is the Holocaust also predicted, and is it there in the Torah? And he hands me a Chumash, a Bible, and he says, why don't you look? And what was I supposed to do? Go to Devarim Lamed, Deuteronomy 30, verse 3, and know that that is verse 5708, corresponding to 1948. If I wanted to see the Holocaust, what should I be doing? Going backwards. Just to give you a little reminder of timing of events. Israel was created 3 years after the Holocaust was over, after the Allies won the war. At that time, there were no vacations in the middle of wars. That may come as a surprise to you. No ceasefires. We fought until we beat the enemy, until we kicked their A in. You understand? And they lost, and they admitted defeat. And 1945 was the end of the war. The Holocaust was during the 40s, early 40s, and the late 30s when Hitler assumed power. Late 30s, early 40s to 1945. You with me? Now, I told you that verse 5708, i.e. 1948, was verse 3, number 3 in chapter 30. That means verse 2 was 1947, and verse 1 was 1946. Interesting. A new chapter beginning with 1946. That would mean the previous chapter, chapter 29, and the verses in it would be corresponding to the earlier years, the years of the early 40s and the late 30s. And what is the theme of those verses? And you will discover that in those sentences it says, and the Jews will face a time of total calamity and catastrophe. There will be moments like Sodom and Gomorrah. There will be kinds of horrors that cannot even be written in this book, etc., 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 corresponding to the years of the Holocaust. Wow. We will turn to the Saro Shel Esav, the representatives of Esav, and I'm quoting now in Hebrew, but I'll translate it to English. It will again blow your mind. Saro Shel Umot HaOlam, the representatives of the nations of the world, who were identified as what Esav was then, the outsiders who hated us. And the Umot HaOlam will say, after we have been decimated, we have been tortured and killed, we will say, give us a blessing, we got to go on. There will come a time, believe it or not, where we will turn to the Umot HaOlam, and the Umot HaOlam will bless us with the name Israel. Do you understand that in 1945, I had some people, members of my congregation, who were in concentration camps, and when they got out, they said, we thought we were the only Jews left, because they killed everybody. There must be a few survivors, that's it. Do you know that it's 3 years from 45 to 48, and in 1948, we established our state of Israel? Do you know how miraculous that is? Nachmanides predicted it based on the verse that said, in the aftermath of destruction, we will turn to the nations of the world, and they will give us the blessing of Israel. I'm going to do one last thing with you. I keep saying they're incredible. Everything is incredible. Yeah. But this is incredible to the nth degree, because this is to the year. I told you about the secret of sentences. That was to the year. That's fine. That's one method. There's another. Background, you need to know a law in the Torah. The law is the law of the Jubilee. The 50th year, the quote in the Torah is on the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. If a slave was a slave, 6 years you shall labor, 7 to go out free. But the condition of slavery was totally different, not what you imagine as Uncle Tom's Cabin. You were never allowed to oppress him. All kinds of wonderful things, so much so that they were afraid that somebody might say, after selling himself into slavery to make some money, I want to stay a slave. So the Torah says, well, you can stay a slave, but at a certain point, you must go free. And the Jubilee year, the 50th year, everybody goes free. Everybody. Even slaves who sold themselves again into slavery. And in the 50th year, something else happened. Do you know that according to Jewish law, you cannot sell a field property that you own forever? You are only a caretaker. And you can only sell fields up until the time of the Jubilee year. But in the Jubilee, all land goes back to their original owners, so that the mistakes of one generation are not inherited by the next generation. It's capitalism with a caveat. It's capitalism, but in the sense that it's only for 50 years, and in the 50th year, everybody's equal because all the land goes back to their original owners. So you understand, freedom and land back to the original owners. Now, the Torah says the following. In the 50th year, Toshuvu, here's the word, try to remember this word. Toshuvu, you will return, every man to his family and every man to his inheritance, which means you will return, you'll no longer be a slave in the 50th year, and you get your land back, Toshuvu. There's one problem. The word is spelled incorrectly in the Torah. What do I mean by incorrectly? Not the way grammatically it should be written. You said you know a little Hebrew. The word Toshuvu should be written Tav Shin Vav Bet Vav. Toshuvu. And in every Sefer Torah, intentionally, not by mistake, it is written what we call chaser, missing a letter. It's written Tav Shin Bet Vav, missing a letter. Tav Shin Bet Vav, and we have to imagine and read it as Toshuvu. But it's wrong. But it's not wrong because that's the way every sofer is required to write it. And the question is, why did God, who directed Moshe as to how to write the Sefer Torah, and we continue to write it in that way, tell him to do it in a way that seems to be in error? And everybody wondered about that. And then came the book of Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, called the Zohar, and said, it's for a reason that I will share with you, at least to these people who can keep it quiet and don't misuse it. Today I can quote it to you. The word Toshuva, which means you shall return, the Zohar said, is also a number. Now, I'll do it with you. Tuf is 400, Shin is 300, Bet is 2, and Vav is 6. So that's a total of 708. Now in Hebrew, when we write a year, we do not write the millennium. You know what 1,000-year period you're in. We pick up after that. If we were to write the millennium, since the highest letter is a tuf, and it's 400, you would have to write ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta and go crazy, but you never write millennium. So, the word Toshuvu, Tav Shin Bet Vav, the way we write it, is 708. Said the Zohar, I predict that God is telling us something remarkable, amazing is going to happen in a year 708, but I don't know in which millennium. I can't tell you in which millennium, but in that year of 708, Toshuvu, you, the Jewish people, God is saying, will return to freedom and to your land. Toshuvu. Now the Zohar did not know whether it would be in 4,708 or in 5,708, but he knew also that it could not be in 6,708 because I have already told you there will not be a 6,708. He said, watch out for the year 708. He said that, written. Nothing happened in 4,708. Do you remember the beginning of the speech? The year 5,708 was the year 1948. Tashuvu, you will return. The word said it. You won't be slaves anymore in all these other countries that oppress you. You'll get your land back. Exactly what happened in the Jubilee year. Tashuvu in Tav Shin Bet Vav. And then one time I did this in a class at Yeshiva University, and a kid raises his hand and he says, Rabbi, can I add something? And I'm saying to myself, I just told him the Zohar. And this great, he's going to improve on the Zohar, but you know, you're a teacher, you say, I can learn from anybody. Okay, sure. And he said something that was so incredible and so amazing that I said to him, first of all, you get an A for the course. And second of all, whenever I say this over, I will repeat and add what you said as well. Now, mind you, this is not the Zohar. You got to know the source, and you got to know that this doesn't have the same quality of background of being from the Zohar, a master work, as from a student of mine. But, wow. He said, I know why the letter that is missing in that word, Tashuvu, is the letter Vav, which, of course, as a number is 6. Because maybe that's the Torah's way of saying you will return, and you will return in the year Tafshin Bet Vav 708, that is to say we now know 5708, but Chaser Vav, lacking 6, what? Lacking 6 million. 6 million. Return, yes, but the tragedy is the tragedy. And then subsequently, when I did this lecture somewhere, someone came over to me and said, perhaps it's missing because it's a clue to the millennium in the 6th millennium, meaning it will be telling us in 5708. These are but a few of the incredible clues, no, messages, yes.
In the New York Times, November the 12th, 1919. The article is called Tells Sad Plight of Jews. Felix M. Warburg says they were the worst sufferers in the war. There it is here. The successive blows of contending armies have all but broken the back of the European Jewry, he said, and have reduced to tragically unbelievable poverty, starvation and disease about 6 million souls, or half the Jewish population of the earth.
Finally, we have the Zohar printed. That's 26 volumes or 24 volumes of the Torah of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And that's where the source, that is the source of Kabbalah. And many prophecies were revealed in the book of the Zohar. There is only one problem with the book of the Zohar. Who is going to understand it? Because it was written in codes. Even the stories of the Zohar are a code, are hiding a secret. Right? So are we lucky or not to live in this generation when we see everything is behind us? Everything that the Torah says came true. You know that even the Holocaust is written in the Torah? But that's another subject. And even the Holocaust is written. I mean, not only the Holocaust in Germany, every kind of Holocaust. You could see it in the Torah, if you know how to read the codes of the Torah. Today, all this is being discovered à la pelle, by the buckets. You know that even Jacob, before Moses, he knew the history of the Jewish people until he arrived to our age. And our age with the Holocaust. When he saw that 6 million Jews passed away, he became so sad that he lost his vision. When Jacob was full of happiness, when he started to reveal the great revelations to his children. But when he came finally to the last generation, I mean before the Mashiach, whatever, I mean Acharit Hayamim, the days, the last days of the world, these are these days. And he said to them, there is going to be a Holocaust. 6 million Jews are going to be murdered in such a horrible, atrocious way. He became so sad that he lost the vision. He wanted to reveal exactly the end of time when the Mashiach comes, and this was completely blocked off from him. Why? Because of the sadness that he felt. So you see that our forefathers knew a lot about the future.
God is a God of history. Next step. What is history? For some people, history is coincidence, a series of events that just happen to happen, but they have no meaning. God, being a God of history, cares about the world, and therefore history is not happenstance, but history follows a divine order.
Most Jews do not fully understand the central message of Purim. And that message is, very briefly and simply, that we, the Jewish people, are commanded to destroy the enemies of our people in all times, in all places, as happened, as described in detail in Megillat Esther, in the book of Esther, where we find that 75,811 of our enemies were destroyed, including women and children. Some people are apparently capable of reading this Megillah twice on the day of Purim, year in, year out, without actually seeing what it says, or without asking themselves the question, why did this take place? Why were so many people killed? Why were women and children killed? But the answer is very simple, straightforward. Perhaps it is not politically correct in the eyes of some, but it is the true, authentic, and absolutely essential message of Purim, and it is the central truth of the Torah. The message of Purim is not about commemorating a past event. It is rather commemorating and remembering a past event in order that we know how to behave today, in the present, and in the future. Here, Rambam mentions in Halakha Daled, Halakha Hey, two separate miswot aseh, two positive commandments of the Torah. One is to destroy the 7 nations mentioned a number of times in the Torah, who resided in Eretz Yisrael at the time when the Jewish people entered the land, to destroy those nations who claim this land for themselves. The second mitzvah, immediately after that, it is a mitzvah aseh to destroy Amalek and his descendants. The concept of Amalek still exists. We read every year, before Purim, we read Parashat Zohar, where we are commanded by Hashem to remember that which Amalek did to us and to destroy them.
And this battle between Amalek, good and evil, goes from generation to generation. So Amalek, we know Hitler and Haman and all of those other gang of people that wanted to annihilate the Jews are part of this terrible gang.
This is an occasion all about redemption, renewal, spring, rebirth of freedom.
The whole story is about taking people who were commingled, in a sense, in Egypt, and forging them into their peopleness, forging them into their separation. So the whole story has to be about non-assimilation. It has to be about affirming a distinction.
In every generation, there are those who rise up against us and seek to destroy us. But the Holy One, blessed be He, saves us from their hands.
This is a tough passage, really. I mean, this says that we can predict, really, that in every generation there will be exterminators just around the corner.
Difference exposes you.
Absolutely.
And that you pay a price for your differentiation, but you can also celebrate your emancipation and your self-determination.
And have a sense of humour.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, is Jewish culture always expecting the worst? Yes. Oh, Lily. Yes, darling. Yeah, is that?
I just thought it was realistic.
Yeah.
The Jewish imagination is paranoia confirmed by history.
So now we come to the question, so who is he? Who is he today? Rabbis tell us that there will be a nation in the world, right before Mashiach comes, that we will be able to recognize from their character and their behavior who he is. And the answer is very clear. It's Germany. Commentaries talk about how the concentration of Amalek is mostly in that country. Does it come as a surprise? No. You can see for yourself what they did and what they're capable of doing. But there is Amalek all over the world. Amalek is everywhere.
Lesson is that Haman sought to destroy the Jewish people, just like the Hitlers in every generation that says, and wanted to destroy the message. And we see that this phenomena, or this Haman, occurs in every generation. Unfortunately, we witnessed in the last In the Second World War, there was a Haman, Hitler, may his name be erased, stood up and he decided that he is the master race. And he killed out everyone. Everyone. And this was purely because he was evil.
God says in Jeremiah 16, "Behold, I will bring them, the Jewish people, again into their land." How is God going to bring them back to the land? The answer is hunters. A hunter is someone who comes with a gun and he forces you. Hitler was a hunter. How did it happen? Because God allowed it to happen.
Hitler was real. God created him to punish the Jews for abandoning the Torah.
Oh, for God's sake, I am not here.
Remember who you're talking to.
Even though in every generation there was a Haman, a Hitler that tried to rise up and kill the Jewish people, annihilate, eradicate the idea of Torah, the idea of mitzvahs, the idea of good thought, of positivity, of goodness and kindness. Yet we're still here. The Torah thrives all around the world. And this is the message of Purim. Purim is a time we celebrate victory, we celebrate the triumph, good over evil.
And his son was one of the worst kings in history, or maybe the worst. Yitzchak was very holy and righteous, and his son Esav is the founder of the Nazis. We have examples like this all over. This is what Hashem said. Pakadeti et asher asa Amalek liYisrael. The nature of this nation Amalek, we don't know who Amalek is. We assume that it's the Germans, after we see what they did in the Holocaust, not only to the Jews, to the whole world. And it's not only the Germans, it's most of the European countries. That's where Amalek is, but we don't know for sure.
And therefore we find by Amalek, they wanted to harm the Jews, and they were the first to harm the Jews. Therefore, God tells us we should erase their memory, and we should eradicate them from the face of the earth.
The Jews run the show in the world, not because they want, because that's what God wants. And it's written in the Torah that the non-Jews admit that is the word of God. If they didn't admit, what's the proof? But in the Torah it says that in every nation you will be, you will always be the highlight of the place. Even though we have very small community compared to America, 300 million Americans, 5 million Jews. There's no comparison. But the Jews are everywhere. Politics. All the assistants of Trump, Jews. All the assistants of Sleepy Joe, Jews. Obama, Jews. Everyone around there. Reform Jews, conservative Jews, Chabadnik, this, convert. It's all somehow. Same thing was in Spain. Same thing was in many different countries. When the country hosts the Jews, and the Jews live in that country with freedom, God bless this place thanks to the Jews there. As soon as they torture them, or kill them, or throw them out of the country, the end of this empire shortly after comes. Let's go one by one. The Roman Empire, when they started with the Jews, that was their end. After the Jews, no more Roman Empire. The Greeks, same story. Babylonians disappeared. Persians, Ahasuerus disappeared. In Iran, modern days, the Iranian Shah was very good to the Jews. Iran was the fourth powerful country in the world in its time. After Russia, America, I think Germany, Iran, it's paradise. So wealthy, selling oil, controlling the market. Iran was an empire 30 years ago. They kicked all the Jews ran away when Khomeini came. They went back in time 1,000 years. There's nobody else what to eat there. The end of Iran came. Germany, they killed the Jews. They used to be a massive empire. They stayed a small country now, nothing special. Spain, same thing. The Jews were in power. They did the Spanish Inquisition. Spain and Portugal, nothing is left from them. Russia, there were many hundreds of thousands of Jews there. Russia was a very powerful empire. Everyone was checking from them. The Jews left Russia. The USSR collapsed. Now the Jews gonna run away from America. Most of them assimilated, so they'll become goyim already, their children, so they have nothing to wear because they're not Jewish. But those who are still religious, they will all get up. Within a year or 2 or 5, we'll all have to run away from here. Once we will leave this place, Hashem will bury America. That's what's going to happen. Not because I'm some kind of a prophet. I'm not giving you any prophecies here. I'm just describing to you a divine formula. The chosen people, where they're going to live, and you be good to them and nice to them, I will bless you from the place. The Torah has a source for it.
Just like the Purim story, which actually is a metaphor for the Messianic redemption as well, it's another discussion, another chapter in my book, interestingly, it all turns around.
2 buildings. Wow. You know, I'll tell you something, I think I already told you this, by the way, that the 1 week before, how do you call that, the World Trade Center, those 2 great edifices of tremendous architecture, they were destroyed, I mean, in such a way that nobody still understands what happened. How come they were brought down in such a massive way? 1 week before, one of the great rabbis in Israel, a Hasidic rabbi, an Admor, he came to visit the Square Rebbe in Square, New Square. And he came with some people, some of his disciples in the car. They prayed mincha with minyan in front of everybody passing in Manhattan. Where? Right there, near the World Center. After he finished the davening, the prayer, he said, say bye-bye to those buildings because you are not going to see them no more. I mean, it's unbelievable. There will be 2 big buildings in the land of Edom, which today we relate the word Edom to America. And those are the biggest, the tallest buildings in the world. And they will be brought down completely. And that will be the sign of the beginning of tremendous wars that will end only in the coming of the Mashiach. He said, say bye-bye to those buildings because you are not going to see them no more. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Edom becomes America. Why? Because America is Edom, after all.
Esav, who in modern day terms is really basically, certainly one of them is America. Who is Rome, and so on. Who is Esav? Because Esav is not only a persecutory agent, but it's the greatest of all the persecutory agents, and it is the longest. You know, it's been around with us not in the form of Rome, which I will mention, but it has been around for a long time, thousands of years. And therefore Esav is the greatest of the persecutory nations, and it is the longest. It all started, of course, with Esav. Esav became Edom, which is a nation. Edom became Rome. The Torah says Esav is Edom. The Gemara says, the Talmud says, that Edom is Rome, Zuroimi. Okay, but what's interesting, of course, is that God decided that He doesn't want a nation, or rather Rome, a nation to be the greatest persecutory agent for the Jews, because that would mean that until the Mashiach comes, Rome has to be the major dominant force or nation in the entire world. And God does not want that. As it is, Rome was, a nation for at least probably close to 1,000 years. And then the one in Constantinople went even another 1,000 years after that. So what God did, which is interesting, He changed the form of Esav. Instead of it being Rome, it became Christianity. The concept of Esav as Edom and as Rome was changed, transformed into a religion. So therefore, any nation that has that religion can be considered Esav. See? So therefore, it's not one nation that is now 2,000 years or whatever, but it is a religion, and any nation that has that religion predominantly is called Esav. And that's what happened, you see. So Christianity, of course, ultimately became Western civilization. So Esav today is really Western civilization, because Western civilization is basically Christian. And therefore that is considered to be Esav.
It's the end of days. You're going to need the iron of Esav, which represents Edom, which is the West, Europe, and the Americas, to get intermixed with Ishmael, which is basically Arabs and Muslims. How in the world was this ever going to happen if not for this refugee crisis? At the end of days, you're going to have this intermixing between Esav, Edom, which is the West, and the East, which is the Muslims and the Arabs, making this through this influx into the world. And they're going to have children, you know, I don't want to say by the dozens, but they're going to have a far larger birth rate than the indigenous people there, and they're going to sort of conquer by number. And there are many different sources for this. One of them in Yehezkel, chapter 14, and many other sources as far as this is concerned, where it's mentioned very, very vividly what will happen to the Jews and what will happen to Yerushalayim and what will happen to the world at that time, where there will be many, many people killed and so on and so forth. So the idea of having these refugees come into Europe, it's no longer a matter of whether it's right or wrong. It's just simply a fulfillment of what it was meant to be all along. This is the fulfillment of, you know, the Chazal and the prophecies. This has to happen, and this is just another sign that we are nearing, you know, the completion of this tikkun of the entire world.
Que je vous ai dit tout à l'heure, c'est marqué dans Sanhedrin. Le Mashiach viendra que quand Edom, l'Europe, la chrétienté sera totalement tombée. Donc je vous pose la question, c'est une bonne nouvelle que l'islam envahisse l'Europe? C'est une excellente nouvelle, ça annonce l'envie de Mashiach. Excellente nouvelle. Vous allez le payer très cher, les Européens. Mais à un point, vous n'avez même pas notion de quoi on parle. Et vous n'aurez pas où fuir. Parce que tout le mal que vous avez fait à Israël, vous le paierez au centuple. Quand l'Italie disparaîtra, quand Edom, c'est pour ça que le QG de la chrétienté qui vient de Esav se trouve là-bas, quand cet endroit-là disparaîtra, et c'est ce que veut faire l'islam, il s'occupe. L'islam, c'est le balai d'Israël, sachez-le.
Esav represents all the nations, right? As Ishmael represents the Arab nations, and they all hated us. It's still going on until today. Acts of anti-Semitism keep on happening everywhere, in France, even in America. Unfortunately, this is a law of nature. As our sages said, Halachahi Esav soneh leYaakov. It is a law of nature that Esav will always hate the Jewish people. Will hate Jacob. Jacob is the Jewish people. And Esav is the non-Jewish world. Like our sages said, Halachahi Esav soneh leYaakov. It's a law of nature that Esav, which means, of course, it's the name, the identity of the non-Jewish world, they hate the Jewish people.
Amalek has another face that is not very known unless you go back and read about Esav, the grandfather himself. What's the third face? The grandfather had the face of a Bal Ta'ava. He loved food. He had desires. Coveted. This Ta'ava is very much seen in the nation that Esav formed. Which nation did Esav form? Not Amalek. Remember, Amalek is a grandson. It is an offshoot somewhat. It is a descendant. It is the concentration of the bad. But Esav himself is not Amalek. Esav is the father of Edom, the Edomites. And there are a lot of nations in the world that belong to Edom. The Roman Empire is all Edom. They are related, aren't they? Grandfather and grandson. You will see that today it is possible to recognize who Amalek is and who is Edom. But I just wanted to wake up those of you who are maybe falling asleep that there is a big relationship that can be observed today between the grandfather and the grandson. In other words, even though Ba Sancheriv ubilbel et haolam, Sancheriv, the Syrian king, one of the Syrian kings, came and mixed up everybody, and Amalek is scattered everywhere, including in Iran. Haman Rasha, we just read about him. He's Migeza Amalek. What is Amalek doing in Iran? So Sancheriv came and mixed everybody up, moved everybody around. So we do have Amalek all over, but we will soon see who he is. I just wanted to talk a little bit about this face of Edom, because this is especially a problem in the generation of Mashiach, our generation.
So where you see path of war, murder, control, aggressive, oppression, you know that's coming from an Esav. The lineage of Esav end up in Germania, in Germany, to become from the Zerah of Amalek. Track the lineage of the so-called Aryan race in Germany to Esav. That's where they came from. So where you see acts of war, when you want to deal with things, it cannot be dealt in any other way but war and oppression and violence and control and all these things. Just know it's coming from Esav. But don't worry for 1 second, because the time for war is about to be over, and the descendant of Yaakov is going to come to do time of peace. So right after war comes peace. Redemption is coming with destruction. It has to come with destruction. How can you have a new beginning if the old reality doesn't get completely destroyed? So if we're going to have one kingdom that will be controlled and ruled by Mashiach, then all the rest of the governments have to crumble into pieces, and anything else with it, whether it's the economy or whatever system, it has to crumble before Mashiach is going to come. So either way you're looking at it, it's going to have to come with a destruction. But the main message that we're getting here is that you're worried about a war, you're worried about an Esav that is going to come now to oppress us, coming to us with forms of war and trickery and murder. That's what you're getting impressed from. The control of evil in this world right now is by Esav, by the descendants of Esav. Sof shlitat Esav litmaet. That the end of the control of Esav is to diminish and diminish and diminish. You're not going to see it, by the way. You're not going to see how it's diminishing. You're just seeing fear. And you know, when evil feels that it's about to lose, then it pulls out all its guns. Let me go completely whack on them. You know where you saw that clearly? At 1945, when the Germans, they saw they're about to lose the war, then they went totally crazy with the annihilation. The doses, not the doses, the amount of people, Jews being killed in concentration camps in 44 and 45 became worse, because they knew they were about to lose it. They just kill them, just kill them all. Don't do it quietly, don't do it slowly. Start shooting everybody. Same thing now, evil is seeing, smelling that the light of good is about to overcome and to diminish darkness, so it's going completely whack. It's diminished, it knows it's diminishing. Veliot choshech, now what's going to be the result? Darkness. Strong darkness in the world. But then, the light of power, of good, will reveal. And this is written over 2,000 years ago. And in the future, the sons of Ishmael are future to arouse huge wars all over the world. Now it's going to happen. They're going to go against the entire world, the sons of Edom. And they're going to go and gather war against the rest of the world. The sons of Edom, these are the Christians. So all the Muslims, this is a prophecy from over 2,000 years ago. The Muslims are going to go and they're going to infect the rest of the world. Everywhere they're going to go, they're going to cause havoc, they're going to cause riots, they're going to cause wars, and they're going to go against the land of Edom, the nation of Edom, which in our generation, this is the Christians it's talking about. But look at this, let's read it again. In that time, when Mashiach is about to come, a nation will wake up from the other side of the world. But they're not going to come against us. They're going against Romi. They're going to go against the land of Romi, which we know, we gave many times sources. Romi is the United States. And he's going to go and wage war against the Romi. Karvatlat Yarchin. A huge war. 3 months the war will take. Now what's going to happen? Many nations are going to come to this war. And the nation of Romi will fall into their hands. I mean, America is strong, but not when they're going against 3-4 armies. Adit kanshun kol bnei Edom ala mikol saifei alma, till all the sons of Edom, all the Christians from all sides of the world will gather together. There'll be a coalition. Americans, the British, the Canadians, whatever there are. So they will have the upper hand. So look at the prophecies we're getting here. The ones who are coming from the other side of the world, they're going against the Romi, but nevertheless, they will control them, but they will later on have the upper hand. It says here that the Kadosh Baruch Hu will arise and will destroy completely the city of Edom and will completely uproot them. Ulevatar, then what's going to happen? Da maktiv, what does it say? Le'echoz bekanfot haaretz. The Kadosh Baruch Hu, when you have a tablecloth and there's a lot of junk on the tablecloth, what do? You grab the 2 corners and you shake it, right? Then what does it say? Le'echoz bekanfot haaretz. Hashem is going to grab the kanaf. Kanaf is the end of the what? The corner. He's going to grab the corners of the land and shake all the wicked people from the land. What is he talking about? Ve'yishetze livnei Ishmael mina, and he's going to destroy all the sons of Ishmael. Ve'yitbar kol chilin de la'ila. But first he's going to break all the forces and the powers and the ministers of the nations from the world above. Ve'la yishtar chela le'ila al amal de alma. And there's not going to be even a force from the world above, not even a minister on any other nation in the world. Hashem is going to destroy all the ministers of the nations in the world above. Ela chela de Israel bilchodoi. The only ones who are going to have the power of the Kadosh Baruch Hu that is going to remain is the nation of Israel. The Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to protect the right hand of the nation of Israel to make sure that Israel is going to be victorious. This is a prophecy of Zechariah. I said that many times. This is Zechariah chapter 14, verse 9. That all the nations, not going to be nations anymore. They're all going to become one nation. V'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz. And Hashem will be the king of the entire land. Ki kol ha'umot yikablu le'eloha. All the nations will accept Hashem as their God and will believe Him. When is going to happen? Bayom ahu yeh Adonai echad u'shmo echad. In that day, Hashem and His name is going to be one. There's not going to be idol worship. There's not going to be any nations. There's not going to be anything. Only Hashem's name. This is a prophecy given in the Zohar before even the Holy Temple was destroyed, talking about what's going to be in Acharit HaYamim. And you don't have to be a prophet or a great analysis for that. You have to open the TV or the internet and see that exactly what was prophesied then, that the sons of Ishmael are going to go and cause havoc around the world. So France is completely barbecued. England is next. Now half of Europe is completely half dead. Now look what's going on in America. So, now in a country near you. So, and a lot of people say, oh, but in Israel it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. So this is the only place that nothing's going to happen. Everywhere else is going to happen because the war is going to be all over the place. People think the war is going to be against us. You know what's going to happen? We're just going to sit like the Israelis, lefatzeach garinim. How do you call it in English? The cracking the sunflower seeds, and looking from the side and looking what's going on, like ping pong, ding, ding, ding. And people think that Israel is not safe. Israel is the most safest place. Nothing's going to happen here. But the point is that exactly like it says, is all the nations are going to start going against each other. They're going to just fight each other. The nations are going to fight each other, and we're going to be like with our garinim, the sunflower seeds.
Hashem said to King Shaul, now it's time to destroy Amalek. Don't leave one survivor. Destroy the entire nation of Amalek with their animals, everything that is owned by them. No Jews are allowed to enjoy from it. Do not leave any memory from them. What was special about this nation of Amalek? They have a specialty. Unlike the other nations, there were 7 cursed nations in the Holy Land when the Jews came with Joshua to occupy the Holy Land. Those nations were very wicked because they used to worship idols. There was the prostitution problems, idols, and Hashem didn't like them and He kicked them out of the Holy Land and He gave us the land. That's the history. But even though they were very wicked and cursed, these Goyim, there's still nothing compared to this Amalek. Amalek was a nation that is willing to kill himself as long as they kill Jews with them. That was their purpose. What are we living for? Just to hurt the Jews as much as we can. Remember what Amalek always did to you, right? And the Torah doesn't say, that the language that the Torah say, Asher karcha baderech, that it happens to you in a way. Zachor et asher aser alecha Amalek betzedchem eretz Mitzrayim. Remember what the nation of Amalek did to you when you came out of Egypt. But over here Hashem has no mercy on Amalek at all. This is the only nation in history, even on the Arabs that hate us so much, Hashem have mercy. So that's what the Torah say. If someone is on the way to kill you now or in a year from now, you can kill him even now, a year before. You don't have to wait a minute before. You know this person will kill you, Statistically, that's what it always constantly repeat. So you're allowed to go and attack him first. But it's already becoming a serious argument. Because it's human rights, is how can we be so cruel? Let's wait until the danger is really, really physical. What makes you think maybe they'll die naturally, maybe they won't attack us? There's a lot of question marks here. I agree. But the point is right here that Hashem say, do not have mercy on the children. Kill all their children also. Why? There's no difference between them and their children. In 10 years from now, these children will attack you on the way. Hashem knows, God knows. You kill all men and all women. Me'olel ve'ad yonek. Even babies who breastfeed. Amazing. Mishor ve'ad seh. All oxes, all goats, camels, donkeys. Don't leave anything, any memory from this filthy nation.
And bring God's justice to their doorstep.
We murder them.
Murder? No, Jonah. This is not murder. Before Jews even existed, hatred and slaughter waited for us for thousands of years. From Masada to Munich, we've been massacred. Pharaohs, and popes, and princes, and popular votes calling for our blood. No. We survived the war. We survived the greatest mass eradication in modern history. And we arrive home to find the people who did this to us. They are neighbors. So tell me, what should we do? Shake hands? Turn a blind eye? Forget? No. The greatest single gift of the Jewish people is our capacity to remember. And it's because of our memory that we know this is survival. This is not murder. This is mitzvah.
This Amalek, how is he presented in this world? How does he manifest himself? Where does he draw his power from? The Kabbalah teaches us that every nation in this world has a sar, has a minister, an angel. That's where it derives its strength. And as we all know, all the nations that existed once upon a time, the Babylonians, the Persians, the old Persians, the Greeks, they disappeared. They were around for a while and they left. Their sar, their minister, weakened, fell, eventually being replaced by someone else. Those sarim, every nation with their minister, did not have that much strength, did not have therefore that much influence, at least for thousands of years. Just for a number of years it had influence, it made its contribution, it came on the scene, did what it was supposed to do, and it left. For some reason, we have here an Amalek that's been around for a long, long time. Just like the Jews. The Jews have been around for a long time. Nothing has happened to us, Baruch Hashem. I mean, we've had our ups and downs. Yes, ups and downs, but we're around. Amalek, in some form, will always be around, and we're gonna understand why in a moment. Amalek has a very interesting minister. It's the Sam himself. It's the Yetzirah himself. It's the Sitra Hara himself. It's the Malach HaMavet, the Satan himself. They have, this power has the most powerful minister of all. Besides, of course, the minister of the Jews. Tremendous koach, tremendous power.
So the Samech Mem is the acronym, not the acronym, but the short version of the name of the Satan, Samech Mem Aleph Lamed, and he's also called Satan. Satan is the one who mastins, that goes and prosecutes. Quoting the fight that Yaakov had with the angel of Esav, which the angel of Esav is the Samech Mem, and Yaakov was fighting with him, and he wasn't able to overpower Yaakov. Yaakov was more powerful than him. We explained that when a person has a lot of good deeds, a lot of mitzvot, and a lot of Torah, the other side of holiness can't fight with him. It doesn't matter what he's going to try, the power of the mitzvot will overpower the other side of holiness. When Mashiach is going to come, and this power of impurity will be removed from the world, then the colors will be back vivid again. And then not only that they're going to be strong and bright, there's going to be much more colors that we never even saw.
Why are the nations, why are the goyim, the idol worshippers, why are they mezoamim? What's mezoamim? Mezoamim means they're impure. Their natural state is being impure. A goy's natural state is impurity. What does impurity mean? Impurity means that if you had real glasses that were going to be able to tell you all of the things that are really next to you, your world will be very different than your world right now. Right now you see each other, you see me, that's all you see. But the real world is very different than what we see. And the reason why we don't see it is because if we really saw all of the shedim and the angels, the good ones, the bad ones, and so on, that are really next to us, we'd lose our mind. But the goyim, they have a certain level of tum'ah that is constantly next to them. Constantly next to them. Constantly inside them. Does that make them bad people? Not always. Not always, sometimes. But it's always the case. Why is it always the case, the Gemara asks? Why they have this mezoamim? Why? We're racist now? We have nothing else to do in the world to be racist against goyim. There's 8 billion of them. Find a different hobby. Pick on somebody your own size.
The only ones in the world that remember Amalek are us. If after 10 generations we would forget about Amalek, there'd be no Amalek. So what does the Torah say? Zohar, Eis Hash'atzel Lecha Amalek. You better remember Amalek. Loi Tishkach, never forget. Machai Timcha Zecher Amalek. Well, what are we supposed to do? Forget? Eradicate? Eradicate means there's no commemoration, no Amaleki archaeological find, no Amaleki dog, no Amaleki cow, no Amaleki sheep, no Amaleki house, no Amaleki well. Remember Amalek? Never to forget Amalek. The whole mitzvah sounds so puzzling. And who's Amalek today? So the Rambam says the mitzvah of Mechias Amalek is to hate Rishoyim. It's a contemporary mitzvah. The Ramban, in his addition to mitzvahs that the Rambam neglected to write, Nasei Zion, V'chein etztavinu b'schira zu kedei lizkor, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be moiche, not just for no reason, the name of Amalek, eradicate. Meichem losoy oleinu. He loves us. Listen to the Lashon of the Ramban. It's a very contemporary Lashon. Linkoim, to take vengeance. HaChamas, that's what he writes. HaChamas. Sha'as alonu Amalek, mimeni yisal. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take our vengeance. You know, it's like Rashi Yeshonim says, Bikei Shankiv Leisha B'Shalva. Yeshiv Yaakov. Nitzoitz echad yoytze memafuach shalcha. It's going to take down Esau. It's going to take down Esau.
אחרי זה דור אחרי זה, עשיו ויעקב. אז ישמעאל הוא אבי הערבים, בני דודים. ועשיו זה הנוצרים. אדום. שני אלה ראשי אומות העולם. זה הראשים, משם זה התחיל. לכן דרך אגב כתוב ואני לא נביא, אני כתוב בזוהר, לפני הגאולה התעוררו מלחמות בעולם בין אדום לישמעאל, לא כתוב איזה אומות. אתם רואים מה קורה היום בעולם? נוצרים, היום יש את פוטין טראמפ, שזה נוצרים, אדום נגד, 7 מדינות אסלאמיות, חכו זה רק התחלה. התעוררו מלחמות קשות מאוד, לא בין מדינה למדינה, אלא בין אדום לישמעאל. זה מה שאנחנו ברוך השם במצב מתקדם של התהליכים האלה. רגע, אנחנו במרכז. תכף תבינו, אנחנו מאוד במרכז, כי כתוב, החפץ חיים אמר, שהם ילחמו זה בזה במלחמה שלא נראתה עוד בעולם כל כך הרבה דם. ואז הם יעצרו באמצע, יגידו, רגע, הכל בגלל היהודים. רגע. אני אומר, מה חפץ חיים אמר? נא לא להתפרץ, בבקשה. הוא אמר שהם יעצרו באמצע, יגידו, רגע, הכל בגלל היהודים, בואו, תמיד הכל בגלל היהודים, נשפך כוס חלב בבייג'ינג בסין, איזה יהודי גרם לזה בטוח. אז גם זה בגלל היהודים, אז הם ירצו לבוא עלינו, אבל השנאה תהיה כל כך גדולה שהם לא יצליחו. שהם לא יצליחו לבוא עלינו. ואז הם ימשיכו להילחם, ובסוף כן יבואו 70 אומות ביחד. גוג ומגוג, בגימטריה 70, כולם יבואו לפה. ואנחנו לא צריכים לעשות שום דבר. וגם לא לפחד. זה הכל כתוב בתנת ואליהו. תראו שהכל מתנקז לכיוון הזה.
Et que, à la fin des temps, tout le monde verra son compte réglé. De grandes hécatombes se prépareront dans le pays d'Edom, Rome. C'est un jour de vengeance pour l'Éternel, une année de représailles pour la cause de Tzion. Tout ça c'est marqué dans le prophète Ishaïa.
Le prophète Zacharie, dans le chapitre 14, demande ces statues qui représentent cette puissance islam et christianisme. Comment il va être détruit à la fin des temps? Et ce sera le monde juif qui va grandir et grandir, et que ce sera la nation qui va gérer le monde. On appelle Eretz Israël Eretz Tzvi. Pourquoi? La peau de Tzvi, c'est la seule peau qu'on peut l'attirer. La terre d'Israël, Akadosh Baruch Hu, il va l'attirer, le monde entier, ça sera Israël, et Israël, ça sera Yerushalayim. Et la seule personne qui va dominer dans le monde, ce soit Be'ezrat Hashem, avec le Mashiach, cette pierre qui va grandir, ce sera le peuple d'Israël.
Hashem will bury America. That's what's going to happen. Not because I'm some kind of a prophet. I'm not giving you any prophecies here. I'm just describing to you a divine formula. The chosen people,
Hashem will bury America. That's what's going to happen. Not because I'm some kind of a prophet. I'm not giving you any prophecies here. I'm just describing to you a divine formula. The chosen people.
The Kabbalah tradition is the greatest achievement of human spirit.
My friend, I have studied the Kabbalah my whole life in the Hebrew language.
As well as
and
myself.
I'm here.
Kabbalah tradition is the greatest achievement of human spirit.
Kabbalah tradition is the greatest achievement of human spirit.
Remember the idea that when Esav is high, the Yaakov, the Jews are low? That means when Yaakov when Yaakov is low, that means the Tiferes and Ois of Yaakov is given to Esav. That's what he has. And when Yaakov is high, then the Tiferes and Ois, the beauty and the might, the success and the wisdom remains with Yaakov, right? And it's taken away from Esav. That's the switch. That's the reciprocity. What does it mean? It means that the Ois is beginning to change. Of course, God has his ways of doing it. COVID-19, or the Antifa and the anarchy that's taking place. You are watching the most sophisticated city on the planet dying. What does that mean? That means that the beauty and the might of America, as displayed in a showcase called New York, is disappearing. You see? But if it disappears, then where does it go? Guess what? It goes to Yaakov. That's right. It goes to the Jewish people. That is one of the greatest signs of the redemption about to happen.
הכנראה שאם מספיק, כאילו שהיום כבר שוד, כמה שוד בגלל ועדיין ליבו, אבל יש עוד כמה שעות, אבל יש להשתדל גם היום. כבר מרובה למימון שלו הראשון.
שמעתי וראיתי את המסר שלך.
אני רוצה שתמשיך בקו זה.
אני מתכוון להמשיך בדיוק בקו הזה. קלטתי יותר את המסר שלך.
וזה הקו הכי טוב בשביל...
הקו היחידי.
שלא יצטרכו לכל עניין שלו, בכל וקנית. הקו הצלחה.
אני מודה לך על ההזדמנויות שנתת לבוא ולעזור בך, לשרוד, לקבל את הסיוע הנפשי שאתה נותן לי.
לא רק לי, לכל עם ישראל.
אני עדיין בתחילת המסע שלי.
אני יודע. בגלל זה...
גם את בתחילת התפקיד האחרון.
אני בא בתחילת מעשה לאדם בתחילת מעשה. ואני מתכוון לחזור אליו.
עתתי סודק ולסעדיק עם מאיר ב9-10 אנשים. לבד לברי תסלה שלי, ותהי שהקודש ברוך הוא לצד הזה. מחר והצלחה, ניסים של הקודש ברוך הוא. מחר והצלחה.
I wrote a book in 1995 and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islam is bringing down the World Trade Center.
Nations, democracies don't go to war easily, and they usually debate and argue before they do. Sometimes they have to be bombed into going to war. In fact, that's what happened in World War II. All of Europe had been conquered. You had to America was actually bombed in Pearl Harbor, and that was a pivotal event that opened the eyes of Americans. And once their eyes were opened, they gathered the power that is available in this great free nation, and the result was preordained. I think in a similar way, the bombing of September 11th opened the eyes of Americans to see the great conflict and the great danger that faces us. And once opened, then the overpowering will of the majority of the people of the United States, of the steamroller, is inexorably moving to decide this battle. And this, I think, has been a wake-up call from hell. It is telling us, you have the power now to act, summon the will, because the terrorists have the will to destroy America, to destroy freedom, to destroy all of America's allies and all the democracies, Israel being simply on the front line. There is no question whatsoever that Saddam is seeking and is working and is advancing towards the development of nuclear weapons. No question whatsoever. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly said the September 11th attacks have been good for Israel. Netanyahu said, quote, "We're benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq."
As the prophet Isaiah said, "Unetaticha or lagoyim liot yeshuati ad ktseh haaretz." I have made you a light unto the nations, bringing salvation to the ends of the earth. Today, 2,700 years after Isaiah spoke those prophetic words, Israel is becoming a rising power among the nations. And at long last, its light is shining across the continents, bringing hope and salvation to the ends of the earth. As the prophet Isaiah said,